Rome wasn't built in a day, but it did take less time to build than it did to fall. After all, Rome was the first global empire, paving the way for many that came after. But how did this city in Italy come to dominate the Mediterranean and shape our modern world? Consuls were originally appointed for one-year terms, but this changed over time. Rome was even threatened by Mithridates the Great, who managed to repel 2 Roman invasions into his kingdom. He accomplished many great things during his reign, such as stabilizing the borders of the empire, reforming the army, founding the city of Augusta, and establishing a civil service to collect taxes. The worst of these was Commodus, the son and successor of Marcus Aurelius. He set up a tetrarchy, meaning rule of 4, with himself and 3 of his chosen subordinates, each ruling over a portion of the empire. Even though this worked at first, it didn't solve any of the underlying issues plaguing Rome. As the economy continued to stagnate and attacks from outside continued, the tetrarchy crumbled. In the West, Constantine the Great emerged victorious from a civil war against his fellow emperor Maxentius. He moved the capital of the Western Roman Empire to Constantinople and established Christianity as the official religion of the empire in 313. Unfortunately, this didn't help the situation in the West. Visigoths invaded and sacked Rome in 410, and the empire was never the same. In 455, the Vandals invaded and looted the city, taking the bar off the gate with them to prove their mighty deed. By 476, the Western Roman Empire had fallen. Germanic chieftains were given titles of Roman nobility and allowed to keep their plunder, effectively ending the Roman Empire. However, the Eastern Roman Empire, also called the Byzantine Empire, would continue on for another 1,000 years. He alienated the Senate and squandered the imperial fortune. While he was emperor, Rome suffered from economic decline, political instability, and barbarian invasions. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, subscribe and check out our other videos. The Severan dynasty tried to turn things around, but they were ultimately unsuccessful. The Antonine Plague swept through the empire, killing millions of people and weakening it. In the West, the empire was invaded by Germanic tribes. Emperor Septimus Severus tried to hold the line, but he died in 211 CE while campaigning against them. His successors were unable to stop the tide of invaders. In the east, the Sasanian Persians invaded and sacked several Roman cities. To make matters worse, the Roman economy collapsed. Grain production fell, inflation rose, and the value of currency dropped dramatically. The Roman army became increasingly reliant on foreign mercenaries, which made it harder to defend the empire, and the corruption of the ruling class only made everything worse. In 260 CE, the Roman Emperor Gallienus split the empire in two in an attempt to better defend it. This proved to be a bad idea, because within 50 years, the Western Roman Empire would fall. He also commissioned the building of the famous Augustus of Prima Porta, which depicted him as the new, more divine ruler of Rome. Under Augustus, Rome enjoyed a period of peace and prosperity called the Pax Romana, which lasted for roughly 2 centuries. It was during this time that the empire reached its greatest territorial extent. Roman roads stretched all across the Mediterranean, connecting distant provinces. Trade flourished, and cities were rebuilt after the destruction wrought by Hannibal during the Second Punic War, though the Pax Romana ended with the death of Marcus Aurelius in 180 CE. The empire continued on for another 300 years. It just wasn't as peaceful or prosperous. When he died, his general Archelaus continued the fight and actually defeated Rome in battle. However, after Archelaus died, Rome sent Lucullus to finish the job. He crushed Mithridates' army and took control of his eastern territories. That was until Mark Antony came along. He was given control of the eastern provinces after winning a civil war against Octavian, aka Augustus. Mark Antony awarded Cleopatra, his lover, and the Queen of Egypt, more territory in the east. This didn't sit well with Octavian, so he declared war on her and Mark Antony. He defeated them at the Battle of Actium and established himself as the sole ruler of Rome in 27 BCE. This marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. The Roman Republic lasted for the next 185 years until Julius Caesar seized power in 44 BCE under the Republic. Rome expanded across central Italy, defeating the Etruscans, Greeks, and Carthaginians. One of the Punic Wars against Carthage led to the destruction of that North African city by Scipio Africanus in 146 BCE. This war also gave Rome control of western Mediterranean islands like Sicily and Sardinia, and eastern Mediterranean territories like Greece and Macedonia. Now Rome was a major power in the Mediterranean, which led to more conflicts with other powers. The Third Macedonian War saw Rome defeat Perseus, the last king of Macedon, and gain more territory in Greece. The Third Punic War resulted in the complete destruction of Carthage and Rome's acquisition of its territories in Spain, southern France and North Africa. After defeating the Numantine in Spain, Rome had total control of the Iberian Peninsula. All of this expansion brought great wealth to Rome and its citizens, but it also caused social problems like inequality. The gap between the rich and poor grew larger, and the Senate became dominated by the wealthy elite. Plea, a group of common folk, began revolting against the government in order to get their demands met. They wanted things like the right to marry and limits on how much debt they could owe. Over time, these revolts got more violent, and the Plea even went to war with Rome twice. Eventually, the Senate met most of their demands and created new offices called plebeian tribunes to protect their interest. Other groups in Roman society followed suit and demanded representation in the government as well. Gradually, the Roman Republic turned into a complex system of representative government. Let's find out in today's episode of Ancient Rome Explained. The history of ancient Rome is a long one, so we'll be doing a lot of condensing. For more detailed episodes on the early days of Rome, stay tuned for more episodes. In the year 753 BCE, according to legend, Romulus killed his twin brother Remus after the two founded the city of Rome and disagreed on where the boundaries should be. Romulus chose the Palatine Hill and set up shop there, starting the first of 24 dynasties of kings that would rule Rome for the next 245 years. This era is often referred to as the Roman Kingdom. During this time, Rome grew from a small village on the Tiber River to a major city in central Italy. Most of what we know about the Roman kings comes from the Roman historian Dionysius of Halicarnassus, who wrote a book called Roman History. However, scholars now believe that much of what he wrote may have been fictionalized. We do know that the last king of Rome was Tarquinius Superbus, also known as Tarquin the Proud. His son was Sextus Tarquinius, who was expelled from the city after he raped a woman named Lucretia. This event happened around 509 BCE, which conveniently marks the beginning of the Roman Republic. With the monarchy overthrown, Rome became a republic with two elected officials called consuls presiding over it. While all this was going on, Rome defeated several opponents in the east, including the Seleucids, Pontic, and Cappadocian kings. Augustus ruled for the next 40 years and is considered the first emperor of Rome, after Marcus Aurelius. Rome was ruled by a series of incompetent emperors. In the year 284, Diocletian split the empire into two halves in an effort to restore it. That's where we'll pick up in the next episode of Ancient Rome Explained. Thanks for watching.